Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the amazing Dana Olita. Dana, how you doing today?
I am great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes, you did. Olita.
Okay. I usually ask before, and I'm just in such a fog right now that I forgot to ask, so I apologize. I'm glad I got it right, though. How you doing today?
I am fantastic.
It's always good to see you. For those of you that don't know, Dana is an award-winning writer. She just recently co-wrote and starred in The Central Authority, something we've been talking a lot about here in the last couple of episodes. How was that working on The Central Authority? Because we've talked about it with Kristen, and I would like to get your input on it as well. This is a very unique film in the way that it was filmed and the way that it's portrayed. How was it for you filming this?
Can I just tell you, this was the most fun I think I have ever had. Teaming up with Kristen and Armin and Matt was just beyond amazing. And I have to say, you know, Kristen and I wrote it, and her and I working together, we would just get into this really weird rhythm where we would start spitting ideas, and it just kept coming. And she was amazing to work with.
It comes out in the final product. This is it's satire, comedy, horror, but it's fun. There's a lot of fun to this as well.
Yeah. And one of the cool things we did was we didn't write a script. We didn't write everybody's lines. Like, we just came up with scenarios and ideas, and you know, we knew where we wanted to take things, but we let the actors really control their characters and improv, and I think the result of that was really amazing. I mean, you can really see how talented a lot of the cast is.
Yeah. And for, like I said, where you filmed all over the world, you know, like you had people in London, California, Texas. So it's really impressive to watch. And I can't wait. Here in a couple of weeks, Kristen said once we get some distribution details, we're going to have all of you guys back on a single episode so we could talk about the distribution, how it's going to be getting out to people, kind of a little Central Authority special, which I could not be happier to be a part of. So I want to thank you guys all for letting me come into your world and talk to you about your first horror movies and get the Central Authority out there a little bit, because I'm a big fan. So this is also a lot of fun for me because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of you guys. I'm a huge fan of the film. Charles, Michael, you, Kristen, Jake, everybody. It's so amazing. And I could not be more excited for you guys. I think that this is going to be very special. I think that a lot of people out there in the world are going to be pretty surprised at what happens with this.
We're excited. We're excited to let everybody see it. I mean, like I said, it's just been such a fun project to be involved in.
Yeah. And something else I would like to talk about. You and I have something in common. I grew up in a video store, Downtown Video, here in Adrian, Michigan, hub of the world. So I know how special it is to be in a video store, and you have similar roots in the video industry.
I do. When I was 16, I went to work for West Coast Video in Philadelphia. They were like the first chain. This would be like 1985, I think. Yeah, 85, 86. And it was really exciting because it was brand new and it was a lot of fun. Then I worked for Blockbuster Video and then back to West Coast Video. And I actually owned 5 stores up until the demise of the industry. But I love movies.
Right. And people that are a little bit younger than you and I don't really remember going into the video store. And there's certain memories, even I have now, of elation of going to that video and grabbing it and seeing the video cassette behind there. Or, you know, even worse, you go there and you're so excited to rent Jaws the Revenge for some reason. And then you go to Jaws the Revenge and it's not there. You're like, no, somebody else has this shitty movie. I have one last resort. Let me walk up to the front counter and ask them if somebody had put it in the drop box so I can get it from the drop box. Right. And when I was a little boy and I was in the store all the time, my job was to take the VHSs that came back in, and if they weren't rewound, we had a rewinder. You would just put the tape in, shut it, push the button, and it would just rewind the tape. That's all. That was the whole thing's job. So that was my job when I was a kid, and my pay was I got to take a movie home that night. And it's funny because that's where I seen my first horror movie, House. You know, so being in a video store, I definitely respect and love the fact that you did that because, man, those were such. I miss video stores.
Be kind, rewind, and you have a little.
Yep. And I do want to talk to you about your first horror movie. Obviously, we all started somewhere, and I want to know where this started for you. So, Danny, your first horror movie was
The Omen.
The Omen. And this is a movie I've only been able to talk about once on the show, so this is something very exciting for me. Anything with children being evil to me is always super, super scary. I don't know what it is. I think it's because children are supposed to be innocent. And when you have them completely evil, it's terrifying to me. Do you remember about how old you were the first time you seen it?
Oh, I was probably only 6 or 7. I was really young. Just, really stuck with me. And in fact, actually, one of the first scripts I ever wrote is about a child serial killer. And it probably plays into that, being that it was so influential to me. And I mean, there were some really big stars in that. It was a great movie.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. I'll go to that right now. The effect that the Omen had on your writing. So besides the first one you said, which probably had some offshoot of the Omen, do you think that comes into play when you're writing? Do you usually think back? Or do you think it's like a subliminal thing with the Omen?
I do, because one of the things I really love when I write is suspense. And The Omen is not a particularly gory movie, but it's very suspenseful. It's the music, it's the leading up to it. And I really always try to capitalize on that in things that I write. Even if it's not a horror I'm writing, I just like that suspenseful element.
Yeah. Well, that's what keeps people on the edge of their seat. And that's where you're able to scare them a little bit more when they're that focused on what's going on. And you can bring those scares to, hit you in the chest. You don't have to have blood and guts everywhere for it to be a horror movie. Some of the scariest movies in the world, to me personally, have nothing to do with blood and guts. That's just how it is to me. With The Omen, do you know where you were the first time you watched it?
I don't think I was in the theater for that one. I had actually a different movie that I really loved in the theaters as a first horror, but I think I was at home. It'll sound weird, but so my dad was a total techie, and we had like the first Betamax in the late 70s, and he brought home everything. And I think that's where I first saw it. And I think I wasn't really supposed to be watching it. I think I was sitting on the stairway and my parents were watching it.
Yeah, see, that's another thing that I was really blessed with. My parents were just like, I don't give a shit. I had really young parents. So they were just like, I don't care. Put it on, I don't care. The only movie, I've talked about this on the podcast a couple times, so sorry for the people that have heard this story. The only movie my mother ever shut off and told me I couldn't watch was The Exorcist. We started watching that, and my mom shut it off. She was like, nope, we're not doing this. You're not watching this. So The Exorcist, to me, will always have a stigma around it because of that. Back to The Omen. Which scene from The Omen affected you the most?
Oh, it would definitely be the one where he is sitting on his little red tricycle, and his mom is, I think she's leaning over and watering a plant, or she's at the edge of the stairway and she's leaning over the railing, and there's that whole suspenseful thing with the music, and then he starts riding his little tricycle and he bumps into her and she goes over the edge.
Damon! No!
And she's just sitting there holding Damien, and then
Yeah, and that's when oh, this kid is so evil.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I really love about this whole movie is they do try to play it as, up until this point at least, that maybe the kid's not evil. Maybe there's some other thing around him. But at this point, you realize it's him. He's definitely evil. It's definitely him. So we talk about which scene affect you the most. And that's really hard with the Omen. There's a lot, it's all for you, Damien. There's a lot of those big scenes, and the elevator scene. When you think of the Omen, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
Gregory Peck.
Nice.
And his presence, being such an amazing actor, and him being such a force in this movie, to me, like, I don't know, it almost made horror such a normal thing because he's such a major actor.
Yeah. And I love that, because back then, and this is something that I've talked about a lot too, the reason that movie posters, when we were young in video stores, that was our YouTube, was looking at the VHS cases and looking at the posters. But the reason posters aren't what they used to be is because now actors have to have their faces on them. It has to be about me, rather than stuff like this that would totally grab your attention. So, and I think that this is one of those early films where you got a big name that still was like, make the poster about the movie, not me. I don't have to be standing on the poster staring at you. So I think that that's another great thing about it. You had the name, but when people think about this movie, you think about the fear that it brought to you, not the names that brought it to you. And I love that about this film. I know it's hard to say a favorite scene, especially in this movie, but I always talk about which scene affected you the most and what your favorite scene is. So if you had to choose a favorite scene from The Omen, what do you think your scene would be?
Might sound a little strange, but there's a scene where he's at a birthday party and the dogs.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I'm a real dog person. And that's where you're really starting to get the feeling that something is really wrong with this kid.
Yeah. And that's actually right before, if I remember correctly, that's right before the "It's All for You, Damien" scene.
Right.
Yeah, because the dogs are, what the hell's going on with this kid? Like, you can see it on the dogs, and I love that.
Extrasensory perception, like they're more aware of things than we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Now another question I have: The Omen has had sequels. The Omen has had an official remake, which I believe was 2006. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking it was. I think it was on June 6, 2006, because it was the 666 release date. What is your opinion on the Omen remake or the sequels even?
None of them compare to the original. I've seen all the sequels. I think the only sequel I really liked, I think it was the third one where he was totally grown up and he was a man, and he's trying to find not the baby Jesus, but the baby that's born, that's the savior. That one, I think it was the third one. I like that one.
And I'm one of those people that don't think remakes, again, something I've said a lot. I don't think remakes are inherently bad. I think there's a lot of really, really good remakes. But The Omen, another thing you'll never hear me do is trash anything. I'll never say this sucks, this is terrible. That's not who I am. If you're making art, good for you. I'm proud of you. It just may not be for me. The Omen remake is one of the ones that I compare it to Pet Sematary. It's not bad. It's not good. Pet Sematary, Poltergeist, and The Omen. It's just, there was nothing about it that stood out to me. And if you're going to remake a movie like Poltergeist, The Omen, Pet Sematary, you got to do something to jump back out at me, like with the Child's Play remake, the Dawn of the Dead remake, the Friday the 13th remake. They all have those certain scenes and certain themes around them that jump back out at you to pull you back in. And these movies didn't do that for me. Which now, I hate saying favorite because it makes it sound so dark. Let's just say, what is your kill that stuck with you the most from this movie? I got to talk about kills because it's a horror movie thing. So which kill is your favorite in The Omen?
In the original?
Yes.
Oh, definitely the mom.
Yeah.
Because a mom is so, that's the most important person to a child. It's your mom. And how can you kill her?
Mine's right here all the time. She's on a necklace. Her ashes are right here. She's on my heart all the time. So I totally understand what you mean. And to see
a mom. I mean, I have a son, I have a daughter. There's just something, they need their mom so bad, and then kill her.
Right. And it's not like she was a crackhead abusive mom.
No.
She's, she loves him. And that's another thing. A mother's love is unconditional, obviously. And even as she's sitting there holding the balcony, Damien hoping that he'll help her. So I definitely get that. That's a hard scene. And it's funny the way that we look at scenes from when we first seen them to being an adult and rewatching. Right. Because there's definitely a different feeling as an adult and as a parent. I'm with you. I have a son and 2 daughters. So there is definitely, when I watch The Omen or I watch The Exorcist, there's definitely a different feeling I have as an adult parent versus being a child. Right. So we did talk about your first horror movie being The Omen. I got 2 more questions for you. I'm going to go scream on you here for a little bit. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie?
There's a whole lot. One of the things I always remember was seeing The Fog in the movie theater. John Carpenter's The Fog. I was young and I was with my dad, I remember. And again, that level of suspense just sucked me in. It was like edge of the seat. So
and you said you grew up on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm in the Midwest, and in the Midwest and in the East Coast, the fog is an absolute normal thing around here. So when
Right.
you talk about the fog or the mist, movies like that as kids, holy shit, those are terrifying
Yep.
because we see that. This isn't one of those things where we don't ever have fog around here. Everybody gets fog, and the fog and the mist, those two movies are terrifying to me.
Right. The unknown's always scary. And then this is going to sound really weird because the other one I really loved in the 80s was Motel Hell, which is really more of a comedy horror. I mean, it's very fun.
Yeah. Well, see,
And
I'm with you. I'm much like a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, even with Central Authority. I'm a big horror comedy fan. Some of my favorite horror movies, like I said, House is still my favorite. The Cabin in the Woods, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Shaun of the Dead is not much horror, but there's definitely horror elements to it. A lot of the horror comedies, I think that's the perfect genre for who I am as a human being. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is amazing. Motel Hell, that's, if I remember correctly, they just did a remake of that not too long ago, didn't they?
oh, I didn't know. Making this
There was one time in the 90s I was wrong. So it could happen again, but I'm pretty sure they just did a remake of that.
I just thought it was so, and the weird thing is, so I lived for about 20 years right outside of Hershey, PA, and down the street from us was this little motel, and on the side of the motel was a graveyard. And every time I would drive by, I'd be like, "Are there little people's heads sticking out making the sausage?"
And you know what? I honestly think I think that's why movies like that resonate with us, because I lived growing up next to a cornfield. So Children of the Corn was something that me and my little sister, my kid sister Kendra, we would play Children of the Corn. I'd go out in the cornfield and she'd be running and I'd be like, Outlander, and be chasing her, so I think that's why movies like that kind of resonate with you and I, because if you can relate it to something from your childhood, especially when you are there, it's going to make you think of it a lot more. If you had a good guy doll, Chucky's probably going to resonate with you a little bit more. Child's Play is going to mean more to you. So it's amazing to learn. That's why I like to talk about the first horror movie, not just for me, but for you. I like for you to take that trip back to nostalgia land and really relive that for 15 to 20 minutes. So I got one last question for you. We always end these with the same question. We end it with a skull count. We're talking about the original Omen, 0 skulls being the worst, 5 being the best. Yes, you may use half and quarter skulls. What was your ranking of the Omen, 0 to 5 skulls?
Oh, that's a 5 skull, easy. It's classic.
I love it. It's awesome. Again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. This means a lot to me. It really, really does. Don't go anywhere, Dana. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.